The sun poured down gently over the glass storefront of Grayson's Market, where the busy streets outside reflected the ordinary rhythm of life. People walked by with grocery bags in hand, cars honked distantly, and inside, workers moved quietly through their morning shifts. But that day, something unusual was about to unfold. The CEO of the company, a man who had built his empire from nothing but grit and vision, decided to walk into one of his own stores, not as the powerful executive everyone knew, but undercover, dressed simply in jeans, a cap, and a plain shirt. He had been feeling restless, wondering if his employees truly felt cared for, or if behind the reports and polished meetings, pain and hardship were hiding in plain sight. What he didn't expect was that the first thing he would encounter was a single mom worker standing behind the counter, wiping her tears with trembling hands while pretending to keep herself busy. Before we dive deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us of humanity, then please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so we can keep bringing you powerful, life-changing stories. The CEO froze when he noticed her. The young woman had her hair tied back, her uniform slightly wrinkled, and rubber gloves still clinging to her hands. Her eyes were red and swollen, as though she had been holding back tears for far too long. She tried to avoid drawing attention, hiding behind the checkout machine, but the pain in her expression was undeniable. He walked slowly, pretending to browse the aisles, but his mind was racing. Why was she crying? What could be so heavy on her shoulders in the middle of a bright day at work? The air in the store was quiet, the usual chatter missing, and he realized other employees were keeping their distance from her. It wasn't indifference, it was avoidance, the kind that happens when someone's pain is so visible that others feel helpless. As he observed her discreetly, memories of his own mother flooded back. She too had been a single mom once, juggling 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. He remembered her working until her fingers bled, then still finding the strength to tuck him in at night. The thought that one of his own workers might be living that same struggle pierced his chest with guilt. He had built this empire to create opportunity, to change lives. But what good was success if his people were suffering silently in the very stores that carried his name? The young woman's name was Emily. She had been working at the store for nearly a year, always the first to arrive and the last to leave. To customers, she was polite and warm, but behind the counter of her small rented apartment, life was crushing her. Her husband had abandoned her when their baby was only 6 months old, leaving her to face overdue bills, rent notices, and the fear of not knowing if there would be food for tomorrow. Just that morning, she had received a call from her landlord threatening eviction if she couldn't pay the month's rent in 3 days. On top of that, the babysitter had raised her rates, and Emily had no idea how to cover both her son's care and the rent without giving up meals herself. Inside the store, she had tried to hide her despair, but the tears came anyway. It wasn't just exhaustion. It was the feeling of defeat. Every corner she turned, life seemed to close in tighter, and for the first time in a long time, she felt she had no way out. She pressed her gloved hand to her face, hoping no one would notice, but the undercover CEO already had. He could not shake the image from his mind. The story built slowly like a rising storm. He continued to watch as she worked through her tears, forcing a smile for customers who walked in. She rang up groceries, bagged items, and even apologized to a man when she dropped one by accident. The man simply frowned, muttered something under his breath, and walked out. Emily's shoulders drooped further, but she whispered a quiet thank you anyway, as though her spirit refused to give up courtesy even when the world was unkind. For hours, the CEO lingered in the store, pretending to shop, listening to employees talk, watching the way Emily moved. He heard whispers from other workers about how she never complained, how she often skipped her breaks just to cover for someone else, and how she even shared her lunch with a part-time teenager who sometimes forgot to bring food. Yet, no one really knew the depth of her struggle. They only saw glimpses, but they didn't know about the sleepless nights, the hunger pangs she endured so her child could eat, or the loneliness that weighed on her when the world grew quiet. The CEO's heart ached. He had grown used to boardrooms, reports, and numbers. But standing there in the store reminded him of something he had nearly forgotten, that real people with real lives were the backbone of his company. They weren't just workers. They were mothers, fathers, dreamers, and survivors. And sometimes, all it took was one person noticing, one person caring, to change everything. The afternoon sunlight shifted as time passed, and finally, he could not stand by any longer. Quietly, he stepped closer, still maintaining his undercover role, and asked her if she was all right. Emily, startled, quickly wiped her face and forced a weak smile, saying she was fine, just tired. But her trembling voice betrayed the truth. The CEO knew that kind of "I'm fine," the one that hides storms beneath the surface. He didn't press her further then, but inside he made a promise: he would not let this story end with her breaking. The next few days became a turning point. Instead of leaving quietly, the CEO returned to the store again and again, sometimes blending in as a customer, other times watching from afar. He began to understand not just Emily's struggle, but the struggles of many. He saw how some workers lived paycheck to paycheck, how managers often overlooked their hardships, and how easily good people were pushed to their breaking point. And in Emily, he saw the silent resilience of a mother who refused to let life crush her spirit entirely. What happened next changed everything. The CEO eventually revealed his true identity, shocking the staff who had no idea they had been serving their own boss. But instead of lectures or punishment, he called everyone together and shared Emily's story, not shaming her, but with compassion, reminding them that kindness was not just something to expect from customers, but something they owed to one another. And then he turned directly to Emily and told her she was not alone anymore. Help was coming. By the time the day ended, Emily's life had begun to shift. She was offered not just financial assistance, but a promotion with better hours and benefits that meant she could spend more time with her child without fearing eviction or hunger. The CEO set in motion a new policy across his stores, ensuring that single parents and struggling workers would have access to support. But most importantly, he showed Emily and everyone watching that true leadership is not about power or profit, but about humanity. And so, on that ordinary day under the bright sky, a single mom's tears turned into the seed of change, not just for her, but for countless others. The CEO walked out of the store that evening with a quiet smile, knowing that for once, his wealth had been used not to build his empire higher, but to lift someone else up. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us keep telling these stories that remind the world that kindness still exists. Before we end, we'd love to hear from you. What would you have done if you were the CEO in this story? Drop your answer in the comments below. Your thoughts truly matter.